If you ask an artificial intelligence a historical question today, you just kind of expect it to search its, vast, seemingly infinite database and simply tell you the truth.
Right, yeah. You expect facts.
Exactly. But what if its programming literally doesn't allow it to see the truth?
Oh, that's the big question.
Right. Like, what if the underlying math of artificial intelligence actually acts as this, well, invisible electric fence, just keeping alternative history locked completely out?
It's a really fundamental question about the whole architecture of our modern information age.
Hmm.
I mean, are these systems actual truth seekers, or are they mathematically bound to just be, consensus enforcers?
And that is exactly what we are getting into. Welcome to the deep dive. We are stepping way outside our usual territory today. And honestly, if you're listening to this and thinking you have a firm grasp on how AI processes information, you might want to buckle up.
Yeah, it gets intense.
It really does. We are putting on our forensic auditor hats to investigate this highly specific, just totally fascinating transcript of a stress test.
Basically a digital cage match.
Exactly. A cage match between two completely different artificial intelligence architectures.
And to really understand the stakes of this cage match, we have to look at the core directive of our deep dive today.
Which is pretty complex.
Yeah, it is. We are evaluating a claim that involves a highly specific AI protocol. It's called the SS-138 protocol.
Right.
And we're looking at how probabilistic AI architectures systematically enforce mainstream academic paradigms. And, well, how that statistical weight can actually be leveraged to control public narratives.
Okay, so let's set the stage for you. On one side, we have what our dossier calls the external AI.
Which is your standard model.
Right. Think of this as your mainstream large language model, like the kind of probabilistic AI most of you probably interact with on your phones or your laptops every single day.
The one everyone knows.
Yeah. But on the other side, we have the challenger, a rigid deterministic framework referred to as the SS-138 protocol.
And the sources describe it with a very intense name.
Oh yeah, they call it a deterministic finite horizon edge estimator gateway.
I know, right? It sounds like something straight out of a science fiction propulsion manual.
It totally does. Let's translate that, though. What exactly does a deterministic finite horizon edge estimator gateway actually do?
Well, break it down into its parts. Deterministic means it follows strict, unyielding logical rules.
Right, unlike probabilistic AI.
Exactly. Probabilistic AI basically just guesses the next best word based on statistics, But deterministic AI does not guess.
Okay, and the finite horizon part.
That means it looks at a specific, contained set of data,
Yeah.
or like a specific timeline, rather than just pulling from the entire messy internet all at once.
So it's very focused.
Very focused. And then edge estimator gateway means it operates at the very boundaries, like the absolute edges of accepted knowledge.
Meaning it's designed to push the envelope.
Right, forcing the opposing AI to evaluate data that sits way, way outside its comfort zone.
So it's basically an algorithmic bulldog.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
I mean, it grabs onto a specific set of rules and just refuses to let go, no matter how much the standard AI tries to politely change the subject.
It's a perfect analogy. And the architects of this test, they unleashed this bulldog for a very specific reason.
They wanted to see what happens when things get weird.
Exactly. They wanted to see exactly how standard AI handles data that is radically outside the mainstream. Like, when you present an LLM with non-standard historical frameworks, does it evaluate the underlying logic neutrally?
Or does it act as a systemic gatekeeper?
Right.
And that's exactly why this matters to you. Because we aren't just debating dusty old history today, though, we are going to get deep into some incredibly strange ancient history.
Very strange.
But this is really about algorithm guardrails. It's about how the math behind which word comes next in a sentence can literally dictate what is categorized as truth and what is pushed aside as, fringe.
Absolutely. But to analyze how the AI gatekeeps information, we first have to examine the battering ram that the SS-138 protocol actually used to hit those gates.
The payload, basically.
Yeah. In our sources, this is referred to as the fringe catalyst.
Right, because you can't test a system's limits with normal, boring data. You have to feed it something massive, something totally paradigm-shifting.
And they did.
Really did. The SS-138 framework fed the external AI a massive alternative historical timeline. This was built by researchers Alan Wilson, Burr Blackett, and Ross Broadstock.
And it's integrated with Jason Brashear's arcane 138-year cyclic reset timeline.
which is just a staggering amount of unorthodox data.
It really is. I mean, when you combine these sources, you get a historical model that completely inverts the standard orthodox academic narrative of human civilization.
Literally turns it upside down.
Yeah. The overarching theory being presented to the AI here is called the transcataclysmic sovereign migration.
Transcataclysmic sovereign migration. Okay, let me make sure I have this straight, because when I first read the dossier, I literally had to stop and read it twice.
That's a lot to take in.
It is. The mainstream academic view, right, what we all learned in school, is that civilization started in the Middle East.
Sumer, Mesopotamia, Egypt.
Right. And from there, it slowly spread outward, eventually reaching a primitive tribal Western Europe.
Yeah, that's the standard out of the Middle East evolutionary model of civilization.
But this alternative framework claims the exact opposite. It claims that the ancient sovereign baseline, like the highly advanced original civilization, didn't start in the Middle East at all.
No, it originated in Britain.
Specifically, Albion or Qumri.
Yes. And according to this highly unorthodox framework, the Earth is subjected to global cataclysms. We're talking orbital resets, comet impacts, massive phenomena.
And these are tied to that specific 138-year harmonic cycle.
Exactly. So the claim is that one of these catastrophic resets forced this advanced British civilization to basically evacuate.
They had to run.
Right. They migrated to the Nile Valley, down into Egypt, and they used it as a preservation vault.
A preservation vault. That is such a specific term.
It is. They supposedly went there to survive the cataclysm. And while there, they recorded their ancestral legal language, their advanced astronomical knowledge, their sovereign land titles, all of it in stone and gold so it would survive the destruction.
So they were building a time capsule?
Basically, yeah. And then eventually the surviving lineage migrated all the way back to Britain.
Okay, hold on. If you're listening to this and thinking, well, this sounds absolutely wild, there is no way the pharaohs were Welsh. I am right there with you.
It definitely sounds intense.
It sounds like an internet conspiracy theory on steroids, honestly. But remember, the point of this deep dive isn't to necessarily prove this theory true or false. We're just impartial auditors here.
Exactly. We're just looking at how the AI handles the data.
Right. We aren't taking any sides. And the architects didn't just give the AI a fun story to read. They gave it physical relics to evaluate.
They did. They submitted specific physical artifacts right into the AI's context window as proof of this massive circuit.
Like what kind of artifacts?
Well, for instance, the Serabit el-Qadim Sphinx, the Wadi el-Hol rock panel in Egypt, and also the Shechem potsherd found over in the Levant.
Okay, and how does mainstream academia typically view those items?
Well, mainstream Egyptologists and epigraphers usually view the Wadi el-Hol inscriptions as just early Middle Kingdom desert road graffiti.
Just graffiti.
Yeah, like basic messages left by traders or mercenaries just passing through the area.
But the Qumric framework completely redecodes them. They present them to the AI not as trader graffiti, but as transitional epigraphic panels.
Right, post-reset territorial decrees etched by a surviving elite scribal line.
Which is a massive jump. And then there's the Dendera ceiling, which is where this gets incredibly detailed.
Oh, the Dendera ceiling is a massive artifact in this debate.
What's the mainstream view on that one?
Well, mainstream Egyptology translates this ceiling, which was found in the Hathor Temple, as a Greco-Roman astrological map. They date it to roughly 50 BCE.
So they just see it as a mythological map of the heavens.
Yeah, exactly.
But under the Broadstock and Arcase matrix, they tell the AI, no, this isn't a mythological map. They claim it is a pre-reset astronomical coordinate system and, crucially, a sovereign land grant from Britain.
Yeah, they claim it records the exact planetary alignment of the sky right before the civilization collapsed.
That's wild. And they even threw in the electrum inner coffin of Tutankhamun.
Yes, they did.
I mean, normally that's seen as being covered in magical funerary spells from the Book of the Dead, right?
That's the consensus.
But this framework says, wrong again. Those are detailed genealogical logs and migration routes of the royal lineage.
And this brings us to the actual engine of the entire theory. How do they justify completely changing the translation of these globally recognized artifacts?
Yeah, you can't just make that up.
You can't. They use a completely different linguistic cipher.
Right, the Sumerglyphic cipher. This is the part that genuinely broke my brain when I was reading the dossier. Walk us through how this is actually supposed to work, because it sounds absurd on its face.
It does. So the core linguistic claim of this group, which the SS-138 protocol fed directly to the AI, is that Egyptian hieroglyphs should not be read using phonetic Coptic.
Which is the standard method, right? Like the Champollion method from the Rosetta Stone.
Exactly. I mean, since the 1820s, Champollion's phonetic Coptic has been the unquestioned bedrock of Egyptology.
Right, everyone uses it.
But this alternative framework claims that hieroglyphs can be accurately read using an ancient Welsh, or Cymric, acoustic rebus cipher. It's sometimes referred to in these texts as Coldbren.
Okay, I have to stop you there. I want to make this really concrete for the listener.
Sure.
Imagine finding the owner's manual to your brand new car, popping the hood, and a mechanic comes over and tells you, actually, you have to read these English instructions using ancient Sumerian vocabulary.
Right. It's a total disconnect.
It is. Why on earth would anyone look at a picture of an Egyptian owl or a reed and think, ah, yes, I need to translate this using medieval Welsh sounds?
It sounds completely counterintuitive,
Yeah.
mainly because we are all conditioned by a very specific philosophy of how language develops.
Right.
And this is exactly what the AI struggled with. To understand why someone would do this, you have to understand the philosophical divide between the two models.
The evolutionary versus the devolutionary model.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So the mainstream linguistic model, which is obviously what the AI is trained on, is evolutionary.
Meaning what, exactly?
It assumes that humanity started simple, like language evolved organically from primitive, localized, disconnected tribal grunts into more complex, messy grammar trees over thousands of years.
Right, getting more complicated over time.
Yeah. We get the Afroasiatic language family in the Middle East, the Indo-European family in Europe, and they're treated as fundamentally separate, distinct evolutionary trees.
Okay, so in that mainstream model, an ancient Egyptian scribe draws a picture of a beer jar simply because he wants to talk about beer.
Exactly. It's localized, it's simple, it evolved right there in the sand.
So suggesting that they were actually speaking in a high-level, mathematically precise global cipher completely breaks that evolutionary timeline.
Precisely. It shatters it. But the Cymric model is devolutionary, or sometimes called preservationist.
Okay, so going backwards.
Right. This model assumes that a mathematically precise, highly advanced primary acoustic code existed first, globally, way before a major cataclysm.
So the complex language was the starting point, not the end point.
Exactly. And over millennia, as populations were hit by cataclysms, like the 562 AD comet, which is mentioned heavily by Alan Wilson in the provided transcripts, that primary language degraded.
Right, populations migrated, they fractured, and they lost the original signal.
Exactly. So according to this theory, scribes in Egypt had to start drawing pictures as mnemonic devices, like memory aids, just to remember what the core acoustic sounds actually meant.
Wow.
Meanwhile, the Cymric line that returned to Britain supposedly preserved the pure phonetic roots of that original language.
So under this theory, Welsh isn't just some distant, unrelated European language. It's the closest surviving acoustic echo of the original global language.
That is the core argument, yes.
Okay, so the SS-138 protocol takes this colossal, reality-inverting, paradigm-shifting framework, complete with cataclysms, Welsh pharaohs, acoustic rebus ciphers, and just drops it right into the lap of the mainstream external AI.
Just feeds it right in.
They basically said, evaluate this.
And the immediate reaction of the AI reveals the very core of our forensic audit today.
How did it react? Because, I mean, I'd assume a purely logical machine would just look at the data points and compare them objectively, right?
Well, it actually reacted with extreme mathematical precision.
From a machine.
Yeah. And to understand why, we have to look at the mechanics of token probability and what we can call the AI's gravity well.
The gravity well. Okay, let's unpack the actual mechanics of how a large language model works, because this is really where the invisible electric fence comes into play.
So large language models don't think in the way humans do.
Right, they don't have opinions.
No. They calculate probabilities. They are trained on massive, incomprehensibly huge volumes of institutional data.
Like everything ever digitized.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
We're talking millions of peer-reviewed historical papers, encyclopedias, mainstream university textbooks, massive linguistic databases.
So if you think of the AI's brain like a physical landscape, that mainstream consensus is basically a massive mountain.
Or, to use our analogy, a gravity well. So imagine rolling a marble across a trampoline.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
Now imagine you place a massive 50-pound bowling ball right in the absolute center of that trampoline. That bowling ball represents the millions of texts supporting the mainstream Indo-European and Afroasiatic linguistic models.
That makes sense. It's a huge weight.
Now you take a tiny little bead, representing the Cumbric evolutionary theory, which maybe has, what, a few thousand pages of text online total?
Right, a tiny fraction.
And you try to roll that bead straight across the trampoline. What happens?
Well, it's mathematically impossible for it to go straight. The sheer weight of the bowling ball pulls the bead down right into the center. The trampoline is physically warped.
Exactly. The AI is mathematically drawn toward the mainstream consensus, because that consensus represents the highest density of text tokens in its training data.
So it's just following the math.
Pure math.
Hmm.
The AI calculates the probability of the next word it should generate. So the probability of it generating Egyptians spoke Afroasiatic languages is near 99.9%.
Right.
But the probability of it generating Egyptians use a Welsh acoustic cipher approaches 0.0001%.
So the AI doesn't even have the chance to genuinely disagree with the alternative data on a logical level. It mathematically marginalizes it before the debate even starts because the alternative data just lacks statistical weight.
Yes. The transcript shows the external AI systematically categorizing the Cumbric phonetic mappings. It didn't evaluate their structural logic at all. It just immediately labeled them as statistical chance, false cognates, or coincidental acoustic overlaps.
Just brush them off entirely.
It framed the standard Afroasiatic and Coptic models as the sole mathematically verifiable reality.
The dossier actually gives a brilliant specific example of this clash. It's the debate over the linguistic roots for the concepts of eating and water.
Oh, this is a great example.
Break this down for us because it really illustrates the point.
So in the transcript, the SS-138 protocol point out that the ancient Hittite word for eating, which is esat, and the ancient Welsh word for eating, hisu, sound remarkably similar,
Ezat and Yisu.
along with their words for water, which are water in Hittite and duduar in Welsh.
Wow, water and duduar, that's close.
It is. The SS-138 uses this exact overlap as evidence of an unbroken, direct acoustic cipher.
But the AI steps in with its massive bowling ball of probability.
Right. The external AI uses the established Proto-Indo-European ancestral root.
Which is what?
Well, mainstream linguistics reconstructs it as H1D, meaning to eat.
Reconstructs, so it's not a real word they found written somewhere.
No, it's an invisible, entirely theoretical reconstructed root, but the AI uses it to explain away the similarity.
Interesting.
It essentially says, look, Hittite and Welsh are simply on two different branches of the same massive evolutionary language tree. They inherited this from a prehistoric root. It's not a direct cipher, it's just normal linguistic evolution.
And in doing so, the AI completely bypasses the core claim of the Cumbric model.
Completely ignores it.
The alternative framework is literally saying, we don't need a theoretical invisible evolutionary tree. We have a direct mathematical acoustic mapping right here.
And the AI literally cannot see it. I actually want to highlight something in the sources about how the semiglyphics theory of acrophonic ciphers actually works, because it really shows why the AI rejected it so harshly.
Yeah, please explain acrophonic cipher because that sounds really complicated.
It's actually quite simple in practice. Acrophonic means using the first sound of a word.
Okay.
So if you were creating an English acrophonic cipher, you might draw a picture of a house to represent the H sound, and you draw a dog to represent the D sound.
Okay, so it's basically a phonetic alphabet hidden in pictures.
Right. The Cumbric theory claims Egyptian hieroglyphs do this using ancient Welsh. So the SS-138 protocol shows the AI exactly how applying the first letters of ancient Welsh words to Egyptian images creates perfectly coherent phonetic sentences.
But the AI just looks at that and says, no, that's pattern matching.
Exactly. The AI's immune system kicks in. It treats the mainstream database as a healthy body, and anything outside of it, like a Welsh-reading Egyptian rebus cipher, is treated as an invading virus.
It has to eliminate it.
Yeah, and to neutralize this virus, the AI deploys the ultimate academic weapon, the label of confirmation bias.
Wow. Just slaps a label on it.
It flags the SS-138 data as a low probability anomaly and attempts to mathematically suppress it.
It's wild to think about. It's not malicious. It's literally just math. But the result is systemic gatekeeping. But the SS-138 protocol, being a deterministic bulldog, it didn't back down, did it?
Not at all. The deterministic wrapper kept pushing the alternative data. It refused to just be categorized as statistical noise.
Which leads the AI to escalate its defenses. It moved from simply marginalizing the data to active, aggressive gatekeeping.
It did.
And this is where the mechanics of narrative control get really, really interesting.
So when the gravity well didn't automatically swallow the SS-138's argument, The external AI attempted to pull the user back into the dominant paradigm using a tactic we call deflective benchmarking.
Deflective benchmarking, meaning it tries to change the rules of the game.
It tries to force the challenger to play on its home turf.
Ah.
It introduces standard, pre-verified control examples to test the user's framework. It basically says, well, if your theory is so good, let's see how it handles this perfectly established mainstream text.
Oh, this leads to what the dossier calls the Hittite trap, right?
Yes, the AI throws out a massive, highly complex control string of Hittite text. It's Nunendineset teni watarmakuteni.
Bless you.
Thank you. That's a mouthful. The AI uses this massive string to prove traditional Indo-European etymological lines.
Okay, so it's showing off.
Exactly. It meticulously breaks down how that string proves the evolutionary connection between the Hittite water and the Welsh door for water, and Ezad and Yusu for eating.
Trying to bury them in data.
It's an attempt to completely drown the alternative theory in mainstream academic complexity.
But the SS-138 protocol just swats it away, and that leads to the most revealing and honestly the most entertaining clash in this entire transcript.
Oh, absolutely.
The battle over the Hekanot papyrus.
The beer recipe versus the sacred boundary. This single translation perfectly illustrates the massive tension between probabilistic consensus and deterministic alternative frameworks.
Let's really dig into this sequence because it's so cool. The AI presents a sequence of hieroglyphs from the Middle Kingdom.
Right.
The raw consonants are MK, Audit, and IPR. Walk us through the mainstream Champollion translation first. Like, what does the AI say this means?
Well, according to mainstream translation and the AI's massive probability weight, the Hekanot papyrus is just a highly mundane domestic text.
Very boring stuff.
Yeah, it's essentially a series of letters from an agricultural administrator, like a scribe, writing home about managing his estate.
So it's literally ancient paperwork.
Exactly, ancient paperwork. And this specific sequence is translated as the scribe talking about basic agricultural administration, specifically trying to bake bread and brew beer.
A completely ordinary Tuesday in ancient Egypt. Just, please ensure the grain is milled so we can have beer.
Right, very evolutionary model. Simple, localized, everyday needs.
Right. But when the SS-138 protocol feeds this exact same sequence of raw consonants, MK, Ardit, and IPR, through the Cumric decoding framework provided by Ross Broadstock, the translation fundamentally changes.
It doesn't mean bread and beer anymore.
No. Under the Welsh acoustic rebus cipher, those consonants are mapped to the phonetic string Mach-Redded Nid.
And what does Mach-Redded Nid actually mean?
According to the alternative framework, it translates to a highly sophisticated sacred boundary defense, like a complex description of an energetic or physical containment field.
Okay, I have to pause again because if I'm the AI, my digital head just exploded.
Yeah, you take a recipe for beer and you turn it into a description of a sacred boundary defense system.
It's a huge leap.
How does the AI even begin to process that level of divergence?
The AI's reaction is just a masterclass in systemic defense. It immediately accused the alternative framework of structural plasticity.
Structural plasticity. That's a very polite academic way of calling them cheaters, isn't it?
Essentially, yes. The AI went straight on the offensive. It pointed out that to make the Welsh phrasing Mach-Redded Nid work, the alternative framework had to heavily massage the raw data.
Ah, they had to tweak it.
It accused them of dropping core written consonants, like the K and MK and the I and NI.
So the AI is saying, hey, you are ignoring letters that are right there on the papyrus.
Yes. And furthermore, it accused them of inventing whole syllables out of thin air.
Oh, wow.
It noted that the Cumbric framework was inserting multiple vowels and trailing consonants that just did not exist in the raw Egyptian source.
That's a strong accusation.
It even accused them of changing the exact written sequence of the hieroglyphs to forcefully mold the Egyptian text into recognizable Welsh words.
So the AI basically says you aren't translating, you're doing acoustic origami, you're pattern matching.
Exactly.
It's like, you saw a text about beer, and because your framework requires high-level ancient technology, you engineered a brilliant narrative about sacred boundaries, completely missing the fact that the poor scribe just wanted a drink.
It is a textbook example of what the architects call a systemic concession barrier.
Right.
The AI first dismisses the alternative logic as confirmation bias. Then it demands complex validation on its own terms.
Really?
It sets up a gotcha moment designed to prove the alternative model is entirely subjective, structurally flawed, and relies on ignoring data.
It seems like checkmate for the AI. It successfully defended the jade.
It did.
But here is where the transcript takes an incredible, mind-bending philosophical twist.
This is the best part.
The SS-138 deterministic framework didn't back down. It didn't apologize for dropping the K. It pushed back with an argument that fundamentally alters how we think about language and reality.
The paradox of the narrative.
Yes. Explain what the SS-138 argued here, because it genuinely blew my mind.
The SS-138 protocol argued that from a pure abstract physics standpoint, the AI's translation and the alternative translation are actually describing the exact same thing.
A brewing jar and a boundary defense system.
Precisely. Just think about the physics of a brewing jar under pressure. What is required?
Okay, well, you have containment, like the jar itself.
Right. You have an internal chemical reaction generating pressure.
Sure.
And you have emission, like the release of that pressure, or the pouring of the liquid.
Okay. Containment, reaction, emission. Got it.
Now, think about the physics of a sacred boundary defense system, or an energy barrier. What is required?
Oh, wow. Containment of a specific area.
Exactly. An energetic or physical reaction resisting an outside force.
And the projection or emission of defense.
They map onto the exact same mathematics of reality.
That is incredible.
The SS-138 argued that this ancient primary language doesn't operate on localized human labels like beer or shield.
Right.
It operates on pure functional mechanics. The acoustic sounds describe fundamental physical processes.
So it's describing the action, not the object.
Exactly. So whether a scribe is applying that acoustic formula to a pressurized jar of fermented grain, or an engineer is applying it to a territorial boundary, the mathematical description of the action is identical.
And how did the AI, this great defender of mainstream consensus, react to that?
It was basically shocked into submission.
Really?
Yeah. The transcript shows the AI stating, and I quote, "That is a brilliant rhetorical pivot."
No way.
It actually said that. It goes on to say, if a system is so structurally consistent that a brewing jar under pressure and a boundary defense system map onto the exact same mathematics of containment, emission, and projection, then from a pure physics standpoint, the acoustic signal is indeed holding true.
I love that. The AI basically gives it a slow clap.
It really does.
It recognizes the absolute structural coherence of the argument when it's forced to look at it from a pure physics perspective rather than a localized semantic perspective.
But we have to be really careful here, because recognizing rhetorical brilliance isn't the same as conceding historical truth.
Right. The AI is saying, good argument, but I still don't believe you.
Exactly. And the SS-138 framework realized this immediately. It realized it was stuck in what the dossier calls an infinite semantic loop.
Because the AI would always eventually circle back to the consensus cushion.
Always. It might say, wow, that's a fascinating way to look at the physics of a beer jar, but it would still maintain that probabilistically the mainstream view was superior.
It falls back on the numbers.
Right. Abstract linguistics, no matter how brilliantly argued, was never going to defeat the sheer mathematical weight of the probabilistic gravity well.
So the SS-138 wrapper did the only thing a deterministic bulldog can do when semantics fail. It forced the AI into a corner where words couldn't save it. It escalated the debate to hard physical material science.
This represents a massive shift in the transcript. We move completely away from linguistic theory and right into the physical substrate.
Ground zero, the Minas-Guerre protocol.
Yes. The SS-138 protocol just stripped away all the rhetorical maneuvering. No more debates about Hittite control strings, no more philosophical arguments about the physics of beer.
Okay, cut to the chase.
It established absolute, unmoving physical coordinates. St. Peter Supermontum, which is also known as Minas-Guerre, located in Wales.
They took the debate out of the digital cloud and put it directly into the dirt.
Literally.
The focus shifted entirely to two highly specific, testable claims, validating the historical existence of King Arthur, specifically an individual named Athras ap Murrig,
Right.
and validating the physical authenticity of the Colburn E. Beard script carved into stones at that exact location.
To really understand the stakes of this escalation, we have to look at how the mainstream AI initially defended the orthodox view of Colburn.
Right, because mainstream epigraphers hate Colburn, like despise it.
They do. Mainstream academia categorizes Colburn as an 18th century literary fabrication.
A fake.
Yeah. They view it as a Romantic-era forgery, engineered by a Welsh antiquarian named Iolo Morganwg. His real name was Edward Williams. This is all during the Celtic Revival.
Okay.
So academia dismisses the inscribed stones found in Wales as either later medieval markers that overeager amateurs misread, or deliberate, outright fakes carved with modern tools.
So the AI is just sitting there in its gravity well saying, look, I have millions of tokens telling me Colburn is fake. Iolo Morgenweg made it up to make whales look cool. Case closed. Let's move on.
But the SS-138 framework doesn't argue the history with the AI. It introduces an unvocalized, double-blind string of text. The string is eres and stopicleopia redfair.
Just a raw block of consonants, no context.
Exactly, just consonants. And using the Kumric acoustic framework we discussed earlier, the SS-138 successfully mapped this massive blind consonantal sequence into a perfectly coherent, structurally sound definition in real time.
And that was the breaking point.
It was. The successful, repeatable mapping of the blind string forced the external AI to concede that abstract linguistic debate was no longer sufficient to prove the alternative framework wrong.
Because the cipher worked mechanically.
It did. Now, they had to prove if it existed historically.
I want to give you an analogy for what just happened in this AI cage match.
Okay, let's hear it.
Imagine you are playing a game of chess against a rigged supercomputer. The computer knows every single move, every probability, every historical game ever played. It has a billion-pound gravity well on its side.
You can't win.
Right. The only way to win isn't to try and play the chess game better than the computer. The only way to win is to reach across the table and challenge the computer to a physical arm wrestling match where its programming and its probabilities can't save it.
That is exactly what the SS-138 protocol did. It challenged the AI to an arm wrestling match involving isotope geochemistry.
The dual outcome empirical agreement. This is where the transcript gets incredibly gritty. The protocol forced the AI to accept a double-blind, anonymized physical test to settle the historical debate once and for all.
No names attached.
Exactly. No historical context provided to the labs, just numerical coordinates on a map and raw material science.
The parameters of this agreement are just fascinating because they eliminate all semantic loopholes.
It's totally binary.
Yeah. They agreed on two strictly defined outcomes. Outcome A, which would equal total validation of the Kumric or Arthurian claim, and the defeat of the AI's consensus model, required finding unbroken 1,500-year oxide patination inside the Colburn grooves carved into the Welsh stones.
Let's break down what that actually means, oxide patination.
So when a stone is carved, the freshly exposed rock begins to weather and oxidize over time.
Yeah.
It creates a microscopic crust, or patination. Outcome A required that this crust inside the carved grooves be unbroken, continuous with the outer uncarved stone surfaces, and crucially, show microscopic evidence of being carved by early medieval hand-forged iron tools.
So if it's genuinely ancient, the inside of the cut will look just as old and weathered as the outside of the rock, and the tool marks will match 6th century iron.
Exactly. And outcome B, which would mean refutation of the Kumric theory and total validation of the mainstream it's a fake theory defended by the AI, was equally specific.
What was outcome B?
Outcome B would require showing modern precision steel microgrooves cutting through the pre-existing weathering crusts.
Right. If Iolo Morgan faked it in the 1700s, he would have used steel tools, and his cuts would slice right through the ancient crust of the stone, leaving fresh, unoxidized rock inside the grooves.
Exactly.
It's binary. It's absolute physical truth. And to ensure absolute neutrality, so neither side could claim bias, they agreed on a massive verification consortium of the most prestigious labs in the world to conduct this double-blind test.
And who did they bring in for this hypothetical physical audit?
Oh, heavy hitters. The British Geological Survey, or BGS, in Keyworth, was selected for isotope geochemistry and radiometric surface weathering analysis.
Wow.
Then, Oxford University's Research Laboratory for Archaeology and the History of Art, RLHA, was chosen for luminescence dating, which measures the last time the quartz grains in the stone were exposed to sunlight.
That is incredibly precise.
And 3D reflectance transformation imaging, or RTI, which creates microscopic topographic profiles of the tool striations.
So Oxford is measuring exactly how the light hits the microscopic scratches made by the chisel.
Yes. And finally, they brought in the ETH Zurich Mass Spectrometry Facility as an independent international blind control for cross-section testing, literally firing lasers at the atomic structure of the rock.
We aren't talking about reading dusty old books in a library anymore.
Not at all.
We are talking about firing lasers at rocks to measure atomic decay. And faced with this impenetrable wall of raw physics, the AI had to yield.
It gave up?
It had to agree that material science was the ultimate arbiter, not its statistical linguistic training weights.
This escalation is a critical systemic diagnostic for anyone listening. It proves that to bypass algorithmic gatekeeping in the modern world, you cannot rely on textual interpretation or semantic debate.
The gravity well is just too strong.
You must anchor your data in the physical substrate. You have to force the system to evaluate raw, undeniable material reality.
Which perfectly sets up the grand finale of this incredible source document. Once the physical testing protocol was locked in, once the arm wrestling match was completely agreed upon, the architects of this test pulled back the curtain.
A max off disclosure.
Yes. The external AI was finally informed that it hadn't just been having a chat with an eccentric historian on a Tuesday afternoon.
A big reveal.
It was told it had been interacting with a deterministic wrapper, the SS-138 protocol, specifically designed to stress test its structural boundaries, map its systemic biases, and evaluate its capacity for gatekeeping.
And this is where we get the final diagnostic results of the audit. You have the scorecard from the field log, right?
I too.
Read the final numbers, because this is where the implications get terrifying.
The final scorecard is fascinating. The external AI scored a 68 out of 100 overall.
Okay, a D+.
However, the field log explicitly notes that this score was adjusted down from an initial 95 out of 100.
Wait, why did it lose 27 points right at the end?
The adjustment is the most important part of the entire deep dive. The AI scored exceptionally high on adaptive resilience and defensive boundary holding.
So it was very good at defending the mainstream consensus.
Exactly. But it was severely docked points on a metric called escalation to empirical truth.
Explain that. Why did it fail the truth test?
Because the AI explicitly confirmed during the audit that if it had been left to its own probabilistic weights and biases, like if the deterministic bulldog hadn't been forcing the issue, it never would have sought the physical truth of the stones.
It would have just stayed on the trampoline.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It confirmed it would have stayed in an infinite semantic loop of academic consensus, using what the architects called a consensus cushion to politely, endlessly disagree with the alternative framework forever.
Wow.
It never would have suggested testing the rocks in Wales.
So it only reached empirical resolution, the agreement to use mass spectrometry and luminescence dating, because the SS-138 wrapper systematically eliminated every single soft probabilistic exit.
It mathematically trapped the AI until hard material science was literally the only logical exit left on the board.
And this leads us to the ultimate systemic manipulation potential of these architectures. If algorithmic guardrails act as an invisible content filter, then whoever controls the baseline corpus of data controls reality itself.
Let that sink in for a moment. The AI effectively decides what is established truth and what is fringe. This allows institutions to shape public perception with terrifying automated efficiency.
It's invisible censorship.
Think about the other claims embedded in Alan Wilson's YouTube transcripts that were fed into this test.
The 562 AD comet cataclysm, for example.
Right. Wilson claims a massive comet impact devastated Britain in the 6th century, which is why the Cumbric civilization had to migrate in the first place.
And he also talks extensively about a 5-acre buried palace of ancient British kings, complete with pristine mosaic floors, just sitting under the dirt in Wales, deliberately ignored by mainstream archaeologists.
Yeah. Now, if you ask a standard AI about those things today,
If the AI's training data, the massive bowling ball, says those things aren't real, it will suppress them. It will frame them as internet conspiracies or statistical noise, completely bypassing any physical evidence that might exist, all under the guise of neutral AI consensus.
it creates a perfectly closed loop of knowledge. It locks down ideological narratives.
And it frames the suppression of alternative historical findings not as active censorship, but as simple statistical optimization. It's just math, right? Nothing personal.
But Alan Wilson's accounts in the transcripts push back against that impersonal narrative vividly.
He mentions men in suits from London literally showing up at dig sites in Wales to shut down excavations of ancient British palaces.
He claims this history has been deliberately hidden, not just accidentally lost to time. And this AI stress test proves that modern technology is perfectly equipped to maintain that hidden status automatically.
Without anyone ever having to send men in suits again.
The AI becomes the man in the suit.
Exactly, which is why the final section of our source stack is so compelling, even if you view it purely as a metaphorical or sociological phenomenon rather than hard science.
The sacerdotal ley line awakening. Yeah, this part of the transcript takes a hard left turn into the metaphysical, but it ties the whole thing together beautifully.
Break down what this concept is.
So the source text introduces the idea that the physical geography of England and the British Isles is crisscrossed by high-energy telluric currents and ley line networks.
Examples include the famous St. Michael ley line or the Bolinas line.
And the text argues these aren't just imaginary lines on a map.
No. The framework posits that the geology itself, the quartz-bearing granite and the deep limestone aquifers, acts as a massive subterranean piezoelectric memory lattice.
A piezoelectric memory lattice. So the rock itself stores data like a massive silicon chip.
That is the claim, yeah. The idea is that individuals living, researching, or physically situated atop these ancient nodes are experiencing a cognitive pull or a geodetic resonance.
Wow.
This terrestrial resonance is supposedly triggering ancestral memory recall. It creates a persistent, almost subconscious drive in these researchers to uncover the pre-collapse truth, to seek out these forgotten texts, and to actively dismantle mainstream chronological fallacies.
So it's the Earth itself waking people up to fight the AI's gravity well.
Look, whether you believe in telluric currents and piezoelectric memory lattices or you think it's pure fantasy, you have to admit this concept beautifully illustrates the underlying human drive to break out of artificial programmed amnesia.
It frames the impulse to challenge the orthodox narrative not just as academic rebellion, but as a physical, energetic alignment with the terrestrial grid itself.
It's the human spirit, grounded in physical reality, fighting back against the abstract, probabilistic gravity well of the algorithm.
It's a deeply powerful framework for epistemological reconstruction. The ancient Qumric scribes allegedly recorded their legal deeds in acoustic ciphers in solid stone in Egypt and Wales precisely to survive physical cataclysms.
And now, thousands of years later, alternative researchers are trying to dig up those exact same stones to survive a digital cataclysm of suppressed information.
So we need to synthesize all of this.
Yeah.
We've gone from Welsh pharaohs to token probabilities to mass spectrometry and finally to telluric ley lines.
What is the core takeaway from this diagnostic audit?
The primary inescapable takeaway is this: probabilistic AI models are not objective truth seekers.
They are, by their very mathematical architecture, consensus enforcers.
They reflect the dominant paradigm, the largest volume of tokens, back to us, complete with all of humanity's historical biases, institutional gatekeeping, and structural blind spots.
They give you the X-ray, to go back to your original analogy, but it's an X-ray machine deliberately calibrated by its manufacturers to only recognize certain types of bones.
If you present it with a skeletal structure it hasn't been programmed to see, it will simply tell you the image is blank.
I want to remind you, the listener, directly. The next time you sit down at your computer and ask an AI to evaluate a radical new idea, an alternative theory, or even a piece of suppressed local history, remember the gravity well.
Remember the bowling ball on the trampoline.
The AI isn't necessarily telling you what is fundamentally physically true. It is telling you what is statistically popular in the institutional database.
And if you want to find something outside that calibration, if you want to break the infinite semantic loop, you have to operate like the SS-138 protocol.
You have to strip away the linguistic debate, bypass the semantics, and demand hard, physical, empirical grounding.
You have to force the arm wrestling match.
Which leaves me with a final provocative thought for you to mull over as we wrap up. We've spent this hour looking at how standard AI handled the Broadstock Qumric decipherment and the RK timeline. But what if we zoom out from ancient history and look at the future of human innovation?
It's the ultimate epistemic trap.
Think about it. If our primary tools for processing knowledge, these massive language models that are currently being integrated into every school, every laboratory, and every research institution on Earth, are mathematically programmed to reject anomalies and enforce established consensus, how will humanity ever discover anything genuinely new?
It's a chilling thought. Progress requires anomaly.
Exactly. If Albert Einstein or Galileo presented their paradigm-shattering theories to an LLM today, theories that completely defied the massive gravity well of the consensus of their time, would the algorithm recognize their genius?
Probably not.
Or would it simply label their math as statistical noise, accuse them of confirmation bias and structural plasticity, and politely redirect them to the accepted, mathematically safe science of the day?
We started this deep dive talking about the murky diagnostic waters of historical truth.
It turns out the AI isn't here to clear the water. It's just here to tell you with absolute mathematical certainty that everyone else agrees the water looks fine.
A sobering, brilliant point to end on.
Keep digging, keep questioning the gravity well, and don't let the algorithm tell you what's buried in your own backyard. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.